Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kendra, and in this video I'm going to share with you 4 things that I've learned in my 4 years of knitting. And while I do that, I'm going to get some progress on my Fantomas sweater that I'm making for my husband. So October for me is the month I picked up my first pair of knitting needles, and that happened 4 years ago now. So I wanted to mark the occasion by making a video and reflecting on some of the things I learned over the past 4 years. So the first thing I learned is less is more. I mean that in a few different ways. I've learned that less is more in terms of my yarn stash. I've talked about destashing and working towards reducing my stash, and this has really come out of a realization that for me, I feel most comfortable with a relatively small yarn stash, but I also have learned that less is more in terms of other physical and digital things that take up space related to this hobby. So everything from tools and notions to digital patterns. I do find myself often thinking about, oh, what am I going to do with that sweater quantity? What am I going to do? When am I going to finally cast on that pattern that I bought on sale 2 years ago? These are thoughts that haunt me. Okay, that's dramatic, but I do think about it a lot, and I think just taking a less is more approach will help me sort of address that. The next lesson I've learned over the past 4 years is that frogging is not so bad. I used to be terrified of ripping out all of my hard work. I felt like it would totally undo. I mean, it physically is technically undoing my hard work, but there's so much to be gained from ripping out a project that you finished that just is not working for you. And sometimes that is the best option, but I think on the surface, it doesn't always feel that way. I've learned to embrace the mixed feelings that comes with ultimately deciding to rip out a project. On one hand, I always feel very nervous, negative, sad about ripping out a project because dozens and dozens of hours of my time, my effort, my attention have gone into it, and you can't help but feel like it's a bit of a waste. But on the other hand, on the more positive side, deciding to rip out is evidence of me learning a really important lesson. Maybe the yarn choice I made wasn't the best. Maybe I didn't like the pattern as much as I thought I did. And maybe I don't like the style, the construction of the piece. And I think all of that is important because it informs future decisions with my knitting. And I can't shy away from learning those lessons. And sometimes learning those lessons means ripping out a project you put a ton of work into. I've done it a few times, and I never, ever, ever regret ripping out a project. Frogging is not a bad thing, and we should strip away the negative meaning that the term or the idea has sort of earned itself. I have also learned over the past 4 years that the colors I like don't always like me. And this is something I'm still actively learning today. This isn't something that I can say I learned and I have nothing else to learn in that area. Color has always been a challenge for me. And one of the key things that I feel like I've learned over the past 4 years is that the colors I like to look at and the colors I like to wear and that I think look good on me are 2 separate groups of colors, if I'm honest. And I think in the beginning of my journey, I would say up until last year, I was buying and looking at a lot of grungy greens and gray beiges, colors that I do really like, and I like in certain contexts. I kind of had that realization multiple times over the past 4 years, and it has led to me really struggling to come up with projects that I wanted to make with my stash, and ultimately deciding to destash quite a few sweater quantities that I purchased that I was really excited about when I first saw them, but I slowly over time realized that it really wasn't a color that I think I would enjoy wearing. I think at this point I'm just starting to pay more attention to that and putting a bit more intention into the yarns that I purchase, specifically as it relates to color, and understanding that, yeah, I have to look at it from a lens of what would I actually enjoy wearing. I've concluded that I really like wearing saturated colors, clear colors, in the sense that you look at it and you kind of know what it is. You don't have to guess what color is that. And there are some sweater quantities that I've since destashed that I would look at and recognize that I like the color. I like what I was looking at, but I couldn't really identify what it was. Is it gray? Is it green? Is it brown? And those sort of muddy, multicolored colors that could be interpreted differently depending on the light or the colors that you pair it with. I just don't like wearing them. I like wearing things that are very clearly, oh, that's definitely green. That's definitely blue. That is definitely whatever. So maybe more primary colors, more saturated colors. I hope I'm articulating myself, but I think my point is I really like the look of some colors, but I don't necessarily like wearing those colors. And I'm trying to identify where that Venn diagram intersects and making sure that the colors that I choose to use in garments for me are colors that I know I will enjoy wearing and that will incorporate into my wardrobe fairly easily. The last lesson I have to share is that the things I like to knit are not always the things I like to wear. Or I think more appropriately, the things that I like to wear are not always the things I like to knit. So I have a very simple style, if you could even call it a style. I like to wear pretty basic silhouettes. I think stockinette is the most wearable fabric, but the truth is stockinette can be very boring to knit, especially stockinette in the round. I love knitting cables. I think that's probably my favorite thing to knit. But cables don't always make sense in the things that I want to wear. So recognizing that and understanding that as a product knitter, meaning my driving force behind any project I make is the thing that I'm gonna have when it's all complete. Knowing that about myself means that I have to understand that I'm just not always gonna be super excited about my projects while I'm making them. And my excitement will come later when I have the thing, it's finished and I can wear it. And for me, that means I might have to sometimes suffer through more boring projects, the projects that kind of feel like they're going to drag on, because in the end, that finished object is hopefully going to be worth it. And that's not to say that I'm never going to knit anything I'm excited about ever in my life again. But I think there's a balance to be had, and I definitely want to get use out of the things I make. And I just have to accept that sometimes that means pushing through the less interesting knitting projects. Those are 4 things I've learned over the past 4 years. I would love to hear what you have learned along your knitting journey. and let's have a discussion in the comments. But if I still have your attention, if you're still with me, I will give you the gift of helping me choose my last garment cast on of 2024. I am a mostly monogamous knitter. If I'm knitting a sweater or a larger project, that is the only project of that kind I will make. So as you can imagine, I try to be really intentional about the projects that I choose to cast on, because I know for the next however many weeks, that is all I am going to be working on in that category. I want to end 2024 on a high note by casting on a project that really excites me, but also when I wrap it up, which will probably be in the beginning of 2025, I'll be really happy with it and I'll be able to wear it. So one option I'm considering is the Olsen sweater by Julie Hoover. And I want to knit that with some Let Lopi yarn that I purchased when I was in Iceland earlier this year. I like the pattern, I like the yarn, I like the pattern with the yarn. I think it's going to make a great combination. I think my only hesitation is that if I wrap this project up in mid to late January, then will I actually wear it? I'm not entirely sure that I will. I more so envision this project as something I could throw on in early fall, wear it as a jacket, more of an outerwear piece. I don't necessarily think this makes sense in the deep winter when I would want more of a pullover style sweater and less of an open cardigan. The other option I'm considering is the Cascade by Jose Paquin. The yarn I want to use is my Hudson and West weld in the mallard color. This will be a very wearable piece in mid-January to early February. So I think this yarn and pattern combination will definitely get some wear that time of year. And the other plus side of this project is that it is using deep stash, over 2 years old at this point, and I've been really meaning to work through some of my older stash, my stash in general, but definitely my older stash. And the third option I'm considering is the Gemma pullover by Julie Hoover. And I would like to use my most recent acquisition, actually, that I got about a month ago when I was visiting Toronto for work. I went to the Knitting Loft and they had some great options and the staff were so friendly. I picked up 2 yarns there, but the one I'm considering for this project is the Majo Garn Tweed Supreme in the color Charcoal. And I just really like this yarn. I think the tweed flecks are subtle, but they give enough of a contrast and a discreet pop of color. I think it'll be very wearable. A fingering weight pullover is something that I think I can never go wrong with. My only hesitation with this project is that it is using my most recently acquired yarn. So I don't want to lean into recency bias and only ever work with the yarns that I just purchased. I will say out of the 3 I mentioned, this is the project I'm most excited about. And I think part of it is that recency bias because it's my shiny new yarn. But the other part of it is that I can totally envision myself wearing the very sweater I'm imagining. And I think it's going to work wonderfully in my wardrobe. And just overall, I'm just more excited about this project than I am the other 2. If you feel like helping me out, humoring me a bit, let me know which one you think should be my last cast on of 2024. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm really tired. That's all I have to share in today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.